So do you ever forget what day it is? Yeah, I feel like this is just a normal thing in my life right now. I feel a lot like Joe Banks, the assistant catalog clerk for American Panoscope. I think I got a brain cloud. It's not happening. Something's wrong up there. And I would say for maybe 6 months to a year now, almost every single Sunday when I wake up, it takes me a good 15 minutes to figure out it's Sunday. I just don't even know. It's not there. And then I panic because I'm like, I got to preach. So then I got to run to the internet and, buy a sermon online to be ready, sometimes they'll let me buy 9 and I get 1 free. So, sometimes it's a deal, which is good. It's nice. I don't know if it's a brain cloud or high levels of stress or low levels of bacon. I don't know, but just something is wrong. Something is preventing me from knowing what day it is sometimes. But what if that's not a bad thing? What if not knowing what day it is actually something that ultimately leads to the greatest joy and pleasure a human could ever know? We continue really finishing up our series called Pleasant Places. We've been walking through Psalm 16 this summer. And we're looking at a prayer from Psalm 16. It's a prayer from King David. He was in some kind of trouble when he was praying this. We don't know exactly what kind of trouble, but in his prayer, he has some pleasant places that we can go. They're not physical places. They're spiritual, mental, emotional places that we can go for help. He went to for help. And not just for help, but for confidence. To build confidence in his heart and his mind. What kind of confidence was he building up? The kind of confidence that can help us discover that not knowing what day it is might very well bring us the richest and deepest pleasure we could ever know. What does that mean? Well, let's see if we can find out together. Our sermon today is called Right Place, and will be in Psalm 16, verse 11. King David says this: "You will make known to me the way of life." Have you ever lived close enough to school or work or church or somewhere that you could walk? Ever lived close enough? I've had this several times in life. First time was in college. I didn't have to, get in my car. I could walk anywhere. Everywhere I needed to go, I could just walk. And the only time I really needed my car is if we were going to go to the Waffle King. And then, I had to drive over there. So I had to do that. But 2 other times in life, once in Allander, North Carolina, and the other time in Ridge Spring, South Carolina, I rarely had to use my car. I had the honor of pastoring churches in both of those communities. And in both of those places, our house was next door to the church. So I could walk to work, which is great. But I could also walk to the post office, and I could walk to the grocery store, and I could walk to the hardware store. I could walk to the doctor. I could walk to the community center. I could walk to my insurance agent. I could even walk to the funeral home. It was a dream. I never had to use my car. Now, I will say it's a dream that I'm wanting to repeat. So let me know if you got an affordably priced bungalow somewhere near the church. I'd be all about it. I'm wanting to not use my car anymore. This would be great. During those seasons of life when I walked, I had a clear path to everywhere I needed to go. There was a clear way for me to get where I needed to go. The place that you need to go the most, the place that I need to go the most, there is a clear path. There is a clear way. And the place you need to go the most is not the mall. It's not the golf course. It's not the hunting camp. It's not the beach or the mountains. It's not the lake. It's not anywhere on vacation. It's not Possum Kingdom State Park. If you've never been there, it's in Caddo, Texas. You don't even need to go there. There's nowhere on earth that you need to go that is more important than one place. And the one place that has a clear path to it that every single one of us need to go is the right place. What's the right place? Well, the right place is not the place of death. As we saw last week In the previous verses, David writes that his soul was not going to be abandoned to Sheol, the place, the realm of the dead. The right place is not the realm of the dead. It's not the place of death. It's the place of life. The right place is the place of life. And Jesus said that that place, the right place, is called heaven. Of all the things that Jesus said, what he said most consistently to the most people was this. Matthew 4:17. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Now, many people balk at the idea of there being a supernatural heaven or a supernatural hell. The problem and difficulty with that balk, though, is this. Every human being, past, present, and future, is created with this understanding of eternity. A desire, even, for eternity. On Sundays, we've often reflected on the following words from King Solomon when he was describing what God did with humanity. Ecclesiastes 3:11. He has also set eternity in their heart. Now, can we deny that? Yes. Can we ignore that and fight against it? Absolutely. But every single human being in the deepest part of who we are, the deepest part of our existence, the conscience, the psyche, the ego, the essence, the soul, the spirit, the inner self, whatever you want to call it. In the deepest part of who we are, every human being knows, even if they can't explain it, even if they don't understand it, they know that there is an eternity beyond the earth as we know it now. And the Bible describes that eternity in two parts, in two ways. Heaven, which is the place where we are with God forever. And then hell, a terrifying place where we are separated from God forever. This is the picture that we have. It's been tattooed on our DNA that we know these things are true. Randy Alcorn said this, we may imagine we want 1,000 different things, but God is the one we really long for. His presence brings satisfaction. His absence brings thirst and longing. Our longing for heaven is a longing for God. So for the Christian and the atheist and anybody in between and beyond, it is part of who we are, inside of who we are, that eternity is real, and we are actually longing for eternity, which actually is longing for heaven, which ultimately is longing for God. Whatever it is you're longing for right now, underneath it is a longing for God, even if you don't know it. You are longing for God right now. C.S. Lewis in The Problem of Pain said this, there have been times when I think we do not desire heaven. But more often, I find myself wondering whether in our heart of hearts we have ever desired anything else. What do you desire right now in your heart of hearts? Whatever it is found most in desiring God and God alone. You are desiring God even if you do not know it. Lewis goes on. It is the secret signature of the soul, the incommunicable and unappeasable want. The thing we desired before we met our wives or made our friends or chose our work. And it is the thing which we shall still desire on our deathbeds when the mind no longer knows life or friend or work. It's the thing that we desire even if we don't know we desire it, because we've been created to desire and long for God, because He is the greatest good in the universe, the greatest desire, the greatest longing. David was in the middle of trouble. And in the middle of his trouble, he's praying to God in such a way that he's almost kind of whispering out loud to himself, hey self, there is a clear path out of this trouble. There is a clear way out of this trouble. There is a clear way for you to get out of this trouble right now, and that way is the way to life. Now, does that mean if we just start thinking about heaven and the way to heaven, that all of a sudden all our troubles are going to disappear? That we'll have plenty of money, we'll never have any health problems, and our bacon levels will always be where they're supposed to be? No. What David is saying is simply this. In the middle of whatever it is that we're facing, whatever kind of trouble that we find ourselves in, there is always a way for us to break free from the fear or worry or anger or frustration, the stress, the anxiety, whatever else is making us undone in life. There is a way always to break free. And how? How is it that we can break free like that? But we can out loud whisper to our soul, "Hey soul, the kingdom of heaven is at hand." And that's not a fantasy kingdom, by the way. It's not a Baptist kingdom or a Christian kingdom or a religious kingdom. It is an actual kingdom. It's not just a figment of our imagination. Jesus Christ, 2,000 years ago, bled and died on a cross outside of Jerusalem to guarantee that the doors of that kingdom would be open for me and for you. That a way to the kingdom of God, a way to the kingdom of heaven would be open. See, it's not just that eternity has been set inside of us. Jesus bled and died to make sure the way of eternity was set up for us. That there is a way to escape. There is a way to break free, not just in the moment, but forever. Not long before he was arrested and crucified, Jesus said this to his closest friends, John 14:2, "I am going there to prepare a place for you." It's not a figment of our imagination. It's an actual place. It's a place where Jesus is preparing a place. Over and over again, in a lot of different ways, Jesus very consistently said that there was more to this life than just living and dying and going to school and going to work and getting married and having kids and going on vacation. There's more to life than just life, and there's more to life than just living and dying. And to those of us who are believing in and yielding to and relying on and clinging to Jesus, Jesus has also consistently over and over again promised that our inheritance will be the kingdom of heaven. Is that your inheritance? Have you gained access to that kingdom? Is the inheritance that is promised through the kingdom of heaven yours? And how do we know it's even true? How do we know that inheritance is real? Well, it's real because the story about Jesus is not a story. It's not just an Easter story. It's not just a Christmas story. It's a reality. And the story of Jesus is not just a reality, but there is an important part of the reality. And the reality is Jesus bled and suffered and died. He was crucified for the penalty of sin. He was buried in a tomb, but he was raised from the dead. He is risen. He is risen indeed. And that changes everything. Everything changes. Through the birth and life and death and resurrection of Jesus, Jesus himself has fulfilled the promises. He's made sure that it is guaranteed that the doors of the kingdom of heaven will be open to all who believe in and yield to and trust in him and him alone. He has opened the doors to a kingdom where there is an inheritance that will never drop based on the stock market. It can never rot. It can never rust. It can never be stolen. It can never be taken away. It will never disappear. It will never fade. It will never fail. The best thing we have in this life will all fall under one of those categories. There is no person and no thing in this world that can give us the promise, the guaranteed promise, the confident promise that we can find in Jesus Christ. in the middle of his trouble, in the middle of everything going wrong, in the middle of his problem, David knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that God would help him know the way and find the way of life. He knew that God would help him, direct him toward the kingdom and the promise that has been fulfilled. And from our end, it's not just a promise. We actually now see in the person of Jesus Christ, not only has it been fulfilled, but it has been guaranteed. And what's included in that guaranteed promise? Well, David knew what would be included. Listen to the next part of verse 11. In your presence is fullness of joy. Far too often when we hear the word joy, we think of happiness, but they're not the same. The original word for happy, it comes from a word that means chance or circumstance. In other words, if our circumstances turn out the way that we want them to, then we'll be happy. And if things don't turn out the way we want them to, then we may not be happy. But that's not joy. Joy is completely different from circumstance. James Boyce described it this way. Joy is supernatural delight in God and God's goodness. It is an inner quality of delight in God. So joy, in its purest and most ultimate sense, is a supernatural delight in God and His goodness. That is very different than if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Okay? It's different. Joy in God is deeper. It's beyond what we can imagine and think of. What do you enjoy in life? Just something or someone. What is it that you enjoy in life? Think of at least one thing that you enjoy in life. Now, take that one thing and the enjoyment of that one thing, multiply it times 947 gazillion, and if you get that number, you'll only be 10,743 gazillion light years away from the beginning of the joy that will be with God forever. There's no measurement. There's no way to measure the joy. It's too rich. It's too deep. It's too mind-boggling. It's beyond any enjoyment we can experience here. Jesus said it this way to his friends in John 15. These things I've spoken to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be made full. Full. In the middle of trouble, in the middle of stress, anxiety, confusion, anger, frustration, whatever the trouble was that David was experiencing, in the middle of it, he begins to pray to God in such a way that he's kind of whispering out loud to himself, hey, self, one day your faith will be sight and your joy will be full. Full. I filled up my car with gas the other day, and when I got in the car, it wasn't full. And I was like, wait a minute, I heard that thing click off. I had it on the full thing, and so I kind of drove off. I was like, okay, the little clicker clicked too soon, some little air bubble or something happened, and it said I was full, but I wasn't full. That's not how God works. There's no air bubbles. There's no clickers. You will be full. Full joy. Not average joy, not ho-hum joy, not humdrum joy, not just vacation joy, not even just Christmas joy, but joy full over and over. There's no shortage. It never drops below the F with God. Eternity with God means that we will be full of a joy that goes to infinity and beyond. It never fades and never fails. I mean, think about the things that we enjoy in life. Think about, you go on vacation and it's like Saturday to Saturday and it's Friday. I mean, it's like, man, this is getting ready to be over. Now, some of you are like, whew, it's Friday. Man, there's too many people in my family on this vacation. I'm ready to go home. But we know that feeling of when joy is over and the joy is ending. That doesn't happen in the kingdom of heaven. It doesn't happen in the inheritance of the gospel. Have you found that fullness? Is that fullness part of the resume of your soul? Not like you remember something that happened at camp, or you remembered praying something, or even you remembered joining the church and being baptized, but is the fullness of God, as much as we can experience it on earth, is it filling your tank now? Do you have the kind of joy in God that one day will only be better forever? Get this, joy in God gets better after you die. How often do we say things like this? Hey, how you doing today? Well, I'm above ground. I mean, I'm not in the ground. You know, I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. It's fine that we say that. It's just if you're a Christian, it's not true. The greatest joy will never be in South Carolina. The greatest joy will never be in the United States. The greatest joy will never be on this earth. The greatest joy is your inheritance in the kingdom of heaven. And we have just a taste of it now through the goodness of being in South Carolina and the United States and having bacon and being on vacation and all the things we enjoy in life. We get just a taste, but none of them are full. That fullness only comes from our inheritance in the kingdom of heaven. Is that your inheritance? Have you truly repented of sin, received the salvation that Jesus gives, so that that inheritance is now deposited in the account of your soul forever? Is that your story? If not, turn to Jesus today. Turn to him now. Change your inheritance. If it's not your joy right now to be in Christ, then your joy is not full and it will not be full. Whatever you experience here, this is as good as it gets. It'll never get better than here. Tim Keller said this: the only people who would want heaven are the people who believe the gospel. So do you want heaven? I'm not saying we need to have a death wish. I'm just saying, do you want heaven? Is the gospel good and great and grand and glorious news to you, such that your desire is to want the inheritance that comes with the kingdom? David wanted it. And he has one more powerful thought in the middle of his trouble. Last part of verse 11. In your right hand there are pleasures forever. I asked you, what do you enjoy the most? What brings you the most pleasure in life? What is it that brings you pleasure in this life? Now take that, multiply it by 947 gazillion, and that'll put you about 10,743 light years away from the very beginning of what it means to have pleasure with God forever. It's beyond our comprehension. It is unimaginable. And don't miss that this is a turn in David's life through one prayer. You ever done that? Have you ever just been overwhelmed and you start praying and you kind of feel better after you prayed for a minute or so? What happens? Well, what happens is, whatever it is that's overwhelming us, we stop and we go, God, help. And God helps those that help themselves. No. God just helps. Sometimes I don't help myself. I'm a moron, and I do the wrong thing, and I sin, and I'm stupid, or I'm lazy, or I'm dumb, or I do too much. But God still helps. That's what he does. He may not always help us the way we want to be helped on this earth. We may not get what we think we want on this earth, but God helps. It's what he does. And what happens is we begin to pray, and after praying for just a minute, it's like there's something in our heart and our mind that seems to be lifted. That's what's happening to David. He began in the first sentence of this prayer saying, God, protect me, rescue me. It's all falling apart. This thing is going terrible. Had a moment like that this week? Had a moment where we're like, oh. David had that moment. He had that moment a lot. But here in the matter of 10 sentences, he goes from panic over trouble, begging God to take care of him, to hear 10 sentences later, we find him overwhelmed with joy and peace and patience and confidence in a pleasure that will never end. Never. 10 sentences, he goes from chaos to confidence. Any chaos in your life right now? Any trouble in your life right now? Has anything changed in your life? David had 10 sentences, 11 sentences. Let's just go 10 weeks. Has anything changed in your life in the last 10 weeks? Anything different happen in the last 10 weeks? Anything different happen in your family? Anything change with your finances? Anything change with your health? Anything change at work? Anything change in the presidential election? Any changes in the last 10 weeks? Everything in this life will change. And the harder we fight for things not to change, the more they will change. Everything will change except the pleasure of God in the kingdom of heaven that is waiting for those who trust in Jesus. That never changes. It will never change. There's lots of uncertainty, there's lots of change, but there is no shadow of turning or changing with God. And the pleasure that we will have with him will only become more pleasing the longer we're with him. What's the hymn say? When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. You know what that means? That means think back to 10 weeks ago or 10 years ago. And that may be as far as our minds can go. And the great hymn says, you know what? When we've been there 10,000 years, the best football game won't matter. When we've been there 10,000 years, that fantastic stock or retirement, it won't matter. When we've been there 10,000 years, the vacation of all vacations won't matter, because the joy and pleasure of eternity with God stamps out the greatest joy that we could have on this earth. Because the joy in God can't end. It's always full. I don't know about you, but that's kind of intoxicating to me. I mean, I want a little more of it. I'm not saying we're supposed to ignore real life, because real life is here and we've got to work through real life. But you know what? In the middle of real life, for me, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of busyness. There's a lot of trouble. And the concepts of full joy and full pleasure forever, yeah, I'm all about that. That sounds like really, really good news. Sounds like a great idea. But here's the thing. It's not a great idea. It's a reality. Jesus, on a cross outside of Jerusalem, purchased that reality. This kingdom is real. And this kingdom is full of joy and full of pleasure forever. And we get a taste of it now, even in this room. Even right now, we're getting a taste of joy that will never leave. Have you ever listened to an audiobook? I have not. I just now, I'm really listening to my first audiobook. My roommate from college texted me 2-3 weeks ago, said, hey man, you should listen to this, you'd love it, it's funny, you'll like it. So, I've been listening to it. And there's this one place in the book, and it's a memoir on growing up in the South. And there's this one place in the book where he talks about his family. And this is what he says. They were the ones who taught me so much about telling stories and how not to do it, and then, in inspired moments of surprise, how to tell a story so good you forgot what day it was. And I liked forgetting what day it was, which is, after all, what I think heaven probably is. The whole world forgetting what day it is. You have to, I bet, with an endless supply of them. I love that. I was riding my bike, listening to that, and I just stopped and said, that's what I needed to hear in this moment. That there is coming a day that when I forget what day it is great. It is wonderful. It is fantastic, because in that moment, there will be full joy and full pleasure. I'd love to tell you there's not going to be any trouble in your life this week, but that would be a lie. There's going to be trouble. There's a lot of trouble in life. And I'd love to tell you that your mind's not going to be shot this week, but that'd be a lie, because my mind's shot all the time. But there is one hope that gives me great confidence. One hope that no matter what happens at my house or the White House this week, one hope that gives me joy and pleasure. One hope that if I will let it, can help me break free from fear and worry and stress and anxiety and anger and confusion and whatever else it is that I'm facing in life. And that one hope is what's found in the person of Jesus Christ. One day, I'm going to forget what day it is. It's going to be great, because I'm going to forget, because all of my joy and all of my pleasure is just running together, filled to overflowing. That place, my friend, that place, that is the right place. It's the right place.